Okay, so this is chapter 60 of The Night Singer. 60. The sight of Karina's back, the floral blouse a few sizes too large, Hannah stopped in her tracks. She didn't want to talk to her, but she knew she had no choice. Marcus Johansson was due at the station in just 20 minutes, and he had forewarned her that he was bringing his lawyer. He hadn't sounded remotely surprised when Hannah called to say that they needed to interview him again. She walked over to Karina. Have you found anything else about Marcus Johansson, other than that he filled his tank in Preem? Karina looked up at her, then demonstratively checked the time on her phone. Hannah was well aware that it hadn't been long since Karina had spoken to Ove and given him an update on Johansson, but she refused to apologize for doing her job. Her colleague sighed. I get the sense that he's living a double life. Why? Asked Hannah. The arrangement with his wife made me wonder, said Karina. That's why I decided to check his bank statements. There are quite a few trips to the pub, and I don't think his wife was with him. Why not? Because most of the charges are only enough to cover one drink. Thanks, that's great. It was more than Hannah had been hoping for, but Karina didn't seem remotely happy with her praise. There was a hint of the joy she had seen in the photograph at Maria's place. Still, Hannah couldn't confront her with that now, not right before an important interview. Have you managed to get anywhere with the bloody Cranes bill? She asked instead. Is there anything to suggest it was placed in Joel's hand? No, said Karina. According to forensics, it's more likely he picked it himself, but obviously we can't know for sure. It's just that, given what we know about Marcus Johansson, maybe it has something to do with the relationship after all. For some reason, Karina seemed annoyed. When are you interviewing him? She asked. 10:30, in interview room 14. Let me know if you find anything else. Karina nodded and turned back to her screen. There were still another 10 minutes until Marcus Johansson was due, so Hannah pulled out all the pictures she had taken of the rest area in Malcolmson. She sorted them into piles by date and then flicked through them again. She wanted to find Marcus Johansson, and on Wednesday in particular. She was sure she had parked right behind his black Audi. The chances of an identical car having the same broken side mirror seemed far too slight. Failing to find Marcus, she drew the pictures in frustration. Oh my god. Failing to find Marcus, she threw down the pictures in frustration. Right then, she realized who she was actually looking for, and rummaging through the pile until she found the right picture, Hannah stared down at the image. It was him. The receptionist called to let Hannah know that Marcus Johansson had arrived, and Hannah shoved the picture into a folder, heading downstairs to meet him. On her way there, she paused by Eric's desk and told him it was time. It was clear that Marcus Johansson hadn't slept. He was pale with dark circles beneath his eyes. His lawyer looked much more alert in her gray suit and black pussy bow blouse. Hannah started the tape recorder and reeled off the formalities. What is my client suspected of? Asked the lawyer. Nothing yet, said Hannah. This interview is about establishing whether he should be considered a suspect in the murder of Joel Forsland. Her eyes didn't leave Marcus for a second. Grief was the dominant emotion on his face, but she knew that even people who had killed could be sad. The first time Hannah had visited her father in jail, he had spent almost the entire time crying. Hannah pulled out the image from the rest area in Malcolmson and placed it on the table in front of him. She pointed to the blonde woman. This is you, isn't it? Marcus cast a quick glance at the image and then nodded. Because you didn't want to be recognized? Because I wanted to come as myself, as Tina. Explain, please. I'm a woman, a trans woman. Marcus gave them a pleading look, but Hannah asked him to go on. They needed to understand why he had been at the rest area. I've never felt comfortable in my own body, but a few years ago I hit rock bottom and realized I was going to have to do something about it. I told my wife and she began looking into the issue. That's why we no longer live together. My son has had a hard time accepting who I am too. Marcus Johansson's lawyer sat quietly as he talked, but Hannah got the distinct impression that she already knew everything he was saying. In truth, now that Marcus had told her, Hannah didn't know how she could have missed it herself. He had the same delicate features. It was just that she really had thought the blonde was a woman. She was wearing jeans and a blouse with long straight hair and a light bit of makeup. Why did you lie about having been on Oland? Because I was scared, and because I wanted to protect myself. What was the nature of your relationship with Joel? Asked Hannah. We didn't have a romantic relationship. I wasn't lying about that. I was trying to help him. In what way? Joel was confused and unsure of himself. I felt the same way when I was 15. Looking back now, I can understand why, but at the time I had no idea. I've been on that forum quite often over the past few years, but it wasn't purely chance that I saw Joel's post. I decided to do what I wish someone had done for me at that age, which is, I started talking to him. Was Joel trans? Asked Eric. If you insist on putting a label on him, then yes, I think so. But more than anything, he just felt like something was wrong. At first, he thought it was because he was interested in men, and then because he thought he should have been born female. Recently, he'd started to realize that it wasn't that at all, that he was actually neither and both. Hannah thought it sounded like Marcus was talking in riddles. Do you have a word for that? She asked. There are plenty, non-binary, transgender, fluid. For Joel, the process wasn't over. He didn't know what to call himself. Eric turned the computer toward him and pressed play. What was this about? The story Marcus Johansson gave them fit with the partial version of the conversation Gunnell had already provided. Marcus or Tina had tried to convince Joel to talk to his mother, telling him that the main reason he felt so bad was that the burden was too much for him to bear on his own. Joel had then shouted at Tina to stop sticking her nose in, that everything had been better before they met, that he hated her. With every word, Hannah became increasingly convinced this man hadn't killed Joel, this woman. Could you tell me what exactly happened to your car? She asked. There are no good places for people like me to go out around here, but once a week I dress up as myself and go for a drink. It was something I started as part of my investigation when I realized that I was happier as Tina than I am as Marcus, but it's not easy. A few men heard me talking to my wife as I was leaving, and my voice gave me away. They followed me back to the car, and then, well, you know the rest. For the benefit of the tape, Hannah repeated what Tina had told her earlier, that someone had kicked the side mirror and scratched the paint. She ended the interview and thanked her for coming in. So I'm not a suspect? No, and if you told us the truth sooner, we could have ruled you out much earlier. Didn't you realize this was important information? Joel was struggling even to tell his mother. He really didn't want anyone else to know. I was just trying to respect that.